You're listening to the Gap Podcast with your host, me, Morgan McGill. As we talk God and politics, my prayer is that you're inspired and encouraged to be a part of filling the God-sized gap in the political sphere. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to The Gap. I'm your host, Morgan McGill. If you were with us last week, you saw the other half of Mrs. Bettie Wells, Mayor Bill Wells, and I'm very excited for her testimony and for her to be with me today, because for people in the political sphere and people who are running for office, you can't do it alone. And when you have a supportive spouse like you, that makes all of the difference. And I'm very excited to hear what that journey has been like for you and your testimony. So welcome to The Gap. It's so wonderful to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So what did that look like? Because I know you and Mayor Wells were psychologists before you entered the political sphere. How did that journey look from that space to the political sphere?
Actually, we became psychologists in the middle, well, not in the middle, but all along in politics.
Wow.
Politics was never on our radar because ultimately we're shrinks. We have always been conservative. We've always been Republican. And we thought we were doing all we could by voting correctly, being informed, all of that. And so politics was a different, actually being in politics was a different universe for us. About 20 years ago now, about 2003-ish, about now actually, October of 2003, it was when the Cedar fires broke out. I think that's right. We were going through, as a family, a very difficult time with, just a lot of stuff with the kids and blah, blah, blah. And I would call it a deep, deep, dark valley. So as a result, I was on my face in my closet. We lived in Alpine at the time, praying several times every day and crying out to God, wishing he would tell me, it's okay, just go to lunch and go shopping. Not what he said.
Wish that.
Not what God said at all.
Yeah.
And I can go back even further a little bit. This might be controversial for a lot of people to hear, but it is the truth. Some of my very first memories of being a very little girl were me hearing in my right ear directions, if you will.
Yeah.
Not fully understanding what, let me rephrase that, not fully understanding where they came from, but I'm a little girl. What did I know? Okay, I'll go do this instead, or I'll do this and that. And the right ear has never been wrong. The left ear, I should ignore. It's me. It's going to be a bad decision. So I don't listen to the left ear that often. So this is my baseline. This is my norm. And I did not realize until much, much, much later that probably an angel, Holy Spirit, or, someone divine is giving me direction.
Yeah.
I did not come from a Christian family. Did not go to church. I'm the youngest. I have two older brothers. And then, of course, my mom and dad. And they were not hostile to the faith, but they were not into the faith either. Mm-hmm. They were kind of a, live and let live, probably where I get some of my live and let live tendencies from. And not a bad thing.
I have some of those too.
Yeah, it's good. So I have a cousin who was Catholic. And we were little girls together. She's only 13 months older than me. So, of course, we were hanging out all the time. And her parents asked if I could go to Mass with them when I was about 7 years old.
Wow.
So I went. And it was the Catholic Church on Ballard Street in El Cajon. And I went, and I saw, of course, all the statues, the stained glass window, the whole Catholic experience. And I asked Gina, what? And she, being a good Catholic girl of 8 years old, said, okay, so this is Jesus, that's his mom, and this is what, this is water, we don't play in it, okay? This is what they're doing, and you're not going to take communion, and blah, blah, blah.
You're not allowed.
Right. And she's very matter of fact. I love that about her. And so all of a sudden it made sense. oh, this is what I've always known to be truth, but I couldn't put a name to it.
Wow.
So, okay, I always knew there was God, but I didn't know how to articulate it.
Mm-hmm.
Typical for little kids. Okay, so now I know there's God, there's Jesus, and, the death, burial, resurrection brought to me by the Catholic Church. And although I've never been Catholic, that's how God opened my eyes. That was intriguing. So fast forward to where I'm almost 14 years old, I actually answer an altar call at, Mike McIntosh, North Park Theater Church.
Okay.
A long, long time ago, March 31st, 1981.
Wow.
I'm really old. I just dated myself.
That's okay.
And so then I accepted Christ publicly.
Yeah.
And I felt the conversion. It was a tsunami. I still have no words. To say it was profound is not accurate, but it's the best I have.
Yeah.
All the time I'm hearing stuff in my right ear. Do this, do this, do this. Don't do that. Things like that. Okay. And then when I'm 21, I get baptized. And I just recently, in the last couple of years, realized, wow, 7, 14, 21. Okay, whatever.
Wow.
That's just kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Probably not important, but interesting. So, Bill and I get married. We meet. And in my right ear, we met at College Ave Baptist Church over by San Diego State. And in my right ear, before I even hear Bill's voice, I hear in my right ear, he's the one.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of weird. But hey, I'm used to following directions at this point. So I thought, oh, there's my husband.
Great.
Had no
Awesome.
idea anything. There's a reason why divine intervention needed to happen. You'll hear about that here in a second. So he's a musician, and I was just checking out College Ave because I have a girlfriend, Sherry Darley. She and I worked together at the time. She said, hey, come to my church. There's this Wednesday thing. It was Wednesday or Thursday or something. Midweek. It's great. I said, look, I'm not going to meet anybody. She said, it's okay. I've never seen a group of men and women that are not, married or anything like that have such a fear of talking to each other. You'll be fine. And I said, great. So I go, and Bill was waiting for the band members to show up because it was their rehearsal night. So he happened to be in that room messing around on an upright piano. And I come in and I said, is this the bottom line? I think it was the bottom line. I get the names confused. I said, is this the bottom line? He turns around and he says, you're in the exact right place. And that was the first words I heard Bill ever say. And I thought, oh, that's my husband. That's cool. Okay, great. God, you do you. And then Bill goes off, and by the way, it was a really great church service in the midweek. It was very good. Finally, Bill and I, finally we talk and all of that, and it's a good thing God told me he's the one, because the way Bill asked me out was brutally honest, kind of hilarious now that I look back on it, but Bill can be honest to a fault. What he said to me was, he basically told me all the reasons why he's a loser. He had sole custody of his 2 babies. He had been married before, obviously. Sole custody of his 2 babies who were still in diapers. He was broke. He worked nights and stayed awake all day long, so he wasn't really, as he likes to say, his cognition was not great. Mm-hmm. He lived in a really gross studio apartment with his 2 kids. He drove a Ford Escort that didn't go much more than 35 miles an hour. He was just telling me all the reasons why I shouldn't go out with him, not knowing that I have the right ear thing.
Yeah.
And God said, yeah, he's the one.
Yeah.
And okay, God, why? Why? I don't want to do this. But I did, and we did, and we just celebrated 30 years married.
Amazing.
On June 12th of this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So all that to say, when I'm on my face in the closet, I pay attention.
Yeah.
And we were in a very deep valley, and I talk about it had to do with the kids and all of that. That was from his first marriage, just a lot of junk. And from far, far away, I hear politics. And it's getting closer. And finally, it's in my ear. And I'm saying, okay, God, I hear you. I don't want to do politics. This is another one of those things I don't want to do. I don't have time for it. Bill was not in great health then. And he was, it was just the worst time possible. And we were getting ready to sell our house because we, had to, things like that. And so then the Cedar fires break out. Let me go back. We go to Skyline. We've been at Skyline for 25 years, I think now. And God had told me politics. I told Bill. He looked at me like, no.
Yeah, like never.
He basically said, not in a million years, no.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I don't blame you, but yeah, I get it. But don't shoot the messenger. That's all I am. And I finally needle him enough to call Pastor Garlow, who's fairly politically active.
I have his book right there.
Right there. And Pastor Garlow says, oh, well, then I know exactly who you should talk to. And he sets up a meeting with some people. And they say, well, that's great. We think you're great, but you live in Alpine. There's not a whole lot up there in Alpine because, addresses matter when you're in politics. Yeah. You have to live in the district or whatever. So Bill comes out of that meeting, tells me that. A couple days later, the Cedar fires break out. And our house ended up getting rented out. And we moved down to El Cajon like they asked us to. So it's interesting how God says, do something. And of course, I whine and complain.
But he makes a way.
So we said, at this point, Bill had to admit, okay, here we go again. This is a right ear thing. We have no choice. So we moved down to El Cajon. Bill runs for Cajon Valley, loses miserably. But they did see that we were sincere, that we weren't expecting anything to be given to us, because when God, we feel anyway, when God gives an assignment, nothing is given to us on a silver platter.
Nope.
Simply the assignment is told to us, then we have to go figure it out.
And do it.
Yeah, and also figure out what doors God is opening as opposed to what doors we may be creating, which don't go through those doors. Those are bad doors to go through.
Yeah.
And so the people, the powers that be at that time said, wow, you guys are sincere and serious about this. And we said, yeah. So Bill then got appointed to the Planning Commission in El Cajon, and he did that for a few years. He had to learn how this is done. This whole time has been a profound learning experience for us in how politics really works. It is nothing like we imagined. So then he runs for city council and wins by the skin of his teeth, but wins nonetheless, honestly, authentically. And from there, he, does a pretty good job, and, he's pretty business-minded and, is bringing businesses into El Cajon, which brings revenue in. And I don't know, it's pretty, I don't want to say smooth as glass, but it was good.
Yeah.
It was a good season.
Yeah.
Well, then he decides to run for mayor, and he had the endorsement of everybody on the city council, including the outgoing mayor, Mark Lewis. And he was getting ready to retire, and so Bill had a full year to run. And everything was just going to be smooth as glass, which it wasn't. Mayor Lewis needed to resign earlier than what was anticipated, and as Bill was walking into the ER, because he's also an RN, among other things, to do his shift at Paradise Valley Hospital, another 12-hour shift overnight, in his scrubs with his, backpack over his shoulder, he gets a call saying Mark is being forced out And,
Wow.
you know, there are people that are trying to say he's racist and things like that. And this is going to be ugly, but would you, you know, if everybody says it's okay, and instead of having a special election and you could be appointed since you're pro tem mayor anyway,
Mm-hmm.
Would you be willing to do that? And Bill said, yeah, I guess that's what the mayor pro tem is supposed to do,
Yeah.
is be acting mayor, but let's leave it up to the people, you know.
Yeah.
I will act as mayor. If the people say, yeah, let's just have you in, that's great, appoint you, that's great. If they say, let's do special election, then we'll do that. Well, the people said, let's just appoint you.
Yeah.
So he became mayor. He was appointed mayor before he was elected mayor.
Yeah.
And that was interesting because then they started trying to just fling all of the racism things on Bill. And Bill and I were, so he's now going to be in the spotlight.
Yeah.
And so we need to go buy a tie or two. He had a couple, but nothing like he needed. So we were in JCPenney at Parkway Plaza, walking through, and I get a right ear thing that says, bring the pastors in. And so I stopped Bill in the middle of JCPenney's at Parkway Plaza, and I said, you got to bring the pastors in. And his shoulder, he said, right ear thing? Yeah, right ear thing. He says, okay, we just do those things. And that takes a lot of trust.
Yeah.
So I have to be very, very careful. There are things that I want, and I could say, oh, yeah, it's a right ear thing. But I think I'm more afraid of the lightning bolts hitting me if I abused that.
Yeah.
So it's
The fear of God in a good way.
the healthy fear of God, yes. So he said, okay, we'll bring the pastors in.
Amazing.
And that turned into its whole thing, and it's still very active and all of that, but it's really been about obedience.
Mm-hmm.
And obedience doesn't always look like it should.
Yeah.
To some Christians.
Friends, in over 15 years in the political sphere, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen amazing men and women forego running for office because they have no idea where to start. And on the other side of that, I can't tell you how many times I have seen amazing candidates fumble the ball so hard because they have no idea what they're doing when they decide to run for office. That is why I founded Revival Consulting. The heart of this company is to help God-fearing men and women get elected to local, state, and federal office, because we see a country where the men and women in positions of political power and influence know and love God. If that's you, if you're considering running for office but you have no idea where to start, or you need help, go to itsrevival.com and fill out our consultation form, because we want to help you. We need your voice now more than ever. If you have seen anything that's going on in the world today, you know that you were put on this planet for such a time as this, and we need you. So please don't hesitate. Go to itsrevival.com and fill out our consultation form today. So in all of that, I know that was like a long period of time. In all of that, I know we heard Bill's story, but now how did you remain a rock to him in those seasons? Because the majority of people aren't going to be the candidate. A lot of people might be the family member or relative or friend of the candidate. And I know you probably have seen a lot of things that he's gone through. Oh, yeah. And you have had to hold his hand, and you've had to pray for him, or you've had to just be that support for him in times when maybe you even were questioning what was happening. So what did that look like? How did you remain that strong foundation, like that strong rock with him? Because like I said, the majority of us aren't going to be the candidate, and we need people in our lives like you've been for him. And I've watched you over the years, and you have been a constant. You have always been by his side, which you can't say for a lot of politicians' spouses.
It's true.
You won't even see them at events, but you go to every event. You go to every, yeah, you go to, but I see you at press conferences. I see you whenever you're available, you're there right by his side, which,
Yes.
like I said, it's rare in politics. There are a lot of spouses that don't even step in, and they're just like, that's your thing.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
So I want to hear now the Betty half of all of that.
You know, I'm an introvert and Bill's an extrovert. So it's much easier for him than it looks like it would be to me.
Yeah.
Although lately with the congressional run and all of that, one of the things I've been saying to him daily, sometimes a few times every day, depending on the situation, is, wow, I can't even imagine what it's like to juggle all of those worlds that you juggle. And, you know, it's the congressional run, it's being mayor of kind of a controversial city, you know, with an entirely conservative city council in California.
San Diego County.
Yeah. Really? Okay, God, again. So that's tricky. And then we own our own business. And of course, there's the family and all of that. I mean, he juggles a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets recharged by that because he's the extrovert. However, it's important to note that even extroverts need to be quietly seen. Just me saying, I recognize that you must be under tremendous pressure. And more than once, his shoulders went down. He said, yeah, thanks for noticing.
Mm-hmm.
So that means something. So that's one small thing that I think is important, to simply put yourself in their shoes and articulate that you recognize this is hard. You know, you're going to burn out if you don't get some sleep, if you don't say no to something.
Yeah.
You're going to burn out, and I'm concerned about that. There are a lot of spouses that don't show up. That's true. I would hope, though, that their significant others in some way, shape, or form sort of take care of things for them. Just simple things. Go pick up the dry cleaning. Go, you know, make sure this and that and the other thing is in order. That's kind of a big deal. There are a lot of women that are out there running, and their husbands work. So it's not that it's easier for me, it's just being a therapist, I could make my own hours. So I was able to be there for things. You know, I could just not schedule people on that time. Mm-hmm. So it was not easier for me, but easier for me.
Yeah.
I was just more flexible with my time. And now that we own our own business, I can do that for him. Mm-hmm. A lot of spouses and friends and family members just don't have that luxury. Mm-hmm. But most importantly, pray together. Bill and I pray together every morning. We pray together every night. I say every, but you know, sometimes we're so bone tired. We look at each other and we say, "Thank you, Jesus. Good night." You know?
Thank you. We made it through the day.
Thank you for getting us through the day. Yes. But
see you tomorrow.
Yeah. You know, we don't.
Sometimes you got to keep it real with Jesus.
Right, just real. Sometimes, like, if we don't see you here, we'll see you there. You know, so to you, man. We're cool with anything.
So you have been an active role, and you have been blessed to have that flexibility with your schedule. What would you say to the people listening who want to be able to help and support? What advice would you give those people who don't necessarily have that flexibility? Aside from pray, obviously pray.
Yes. Always first.
Always first. But what would you say to those people listening who they have a family member or a friend that is in this space that they want to support, they just don't necessarily have that flexibility?
So this is where my psychology hat comes out. And this is true for this situation that you're describing, but I would say it is true for just about every situation. If you're in a relationship with somebody and you want to be a support, it could be parent to child, it could be people that aren't in politics. Find out what that person's real needs are. Everybody's different.
Their love language.
Yes, and I actually have added to the love languages. So, I knew for Bill, he needs to be recognized when he's tired. So that's a specific thing to Bill. Whatever your loved one's needs are. So for instance, I'm an introvert. And so if you have somebody that's an introvert, recognize that they need breaks. They need to recharge. They need, for every social interaction they have, they're going to need that much time at least away from people. That's one example. I have 3 kids. And what I did when they were growing up was you cannot use the same discipline on each kid. So a timeout that was just profoundly useful with Matt, Katie would take a nap. She would. So that didn't work for Katie. Timeouts didn't work for Katie. And that is the simple act of looking at the person you love, the human being, figuring out how God made them, and running with that. So
good.
Yeah, if somebody is an acts of service sort of thing, show up with a meal, or do a load of laundry for them if you're not married to, if you're in the same house, that just should be a given. I know there's usually women do the laundry and that sort of thing, but if the woman is running for anything, and she's running 1,000 miles an hour every single day, make the meals, do the laundry. If she's an acts of service sort of person, there are other people that just want to do that themselves because it's not going to get done right if they don't do it. That's a different kind of psychological thing you don't want to do to the person. So figure out who they are and
That's so good.
Go with that.
Yeah.
But then there's also the obedience thing. I feel like, I don't feel like, I just know this. If both people are not into the political thing and willing to jump into this viper pit, and it's a viper pit.
It is.
I always knew it was a viper pit. Just even with local stuff, I've seen the ridiculousness, the personality disorders. I mean, I
feel like it's even more, sometimes it's even more hardcore as you get to the local.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot more personal.
Yeah.
But it's so dark and it's so demonic. If you're both not into it, then you should get out.
Yeah. Because
it's going to rip you apart. It will rip you apart. There will be, arguments. There will be, I don't know, sometimes, I guess, infidelity, physical and or emotional infidelity. Just because you're out there with so many people all the time. I mean, and then there's always those wicked people who just know how to tap your shoulder just the right way. And that's really the enemy getting involved and just delighting and shredding apart a Christian couple. So if you're not both into it, just get out.
That's so good. And yeah, we've seen it so many times in the political sphere specifically.
Yes.
All the infidelity because of, like I said earlier, a lot of spouses don't show up to these things because it's not their thing. They're like, you have your thing and I have my thing. Right. But when you're when you get married, you're one flesh. And this is one thing in particular, running for office and being in public office, where your spouse is equally as in office as you are.
100%. Oh, yes.
So I'm glad that you said that, because I know that people listening, if maybe they feel like they want to run for office, but their spouse is like, absolutely not.
Yeah. And don't. Figure out a different way to get involved and support. There's all sorts of things people can do. There's, You can work on somebody's campaign. If you have money, donate it.
Yes, please.
Please, yeah. And that's okay, even if you don't have money. There's so many other things you can do to support, and you don't have to actually be in office.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, being in office kind of ties your hands. So there are ways. Start a podcast. There's things you can do. You can, I don't know, hey, I'm going to go canvass this particular area in the district or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of ways to help and support that won't destroy your marriage.
So good. Gosh, I want to I definitely want to emphasize that, because it's actually really sad to see the broken marriages in the political space, even on our side.
Oh.
And even Christian couples, and it's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. I'm not practicing anymore. There are times when I chat with people, and I have a lot of chats with people that are completely confidential and, haven't lost that part of me. And I hear the stories, and it wrecks me for them.
Yeah.
For the kids, for the extended family, everybody. It's really not worth it. If you've got both people on the same page, then you run.
If you have a right ear thing, then go for it.
Yeah, yes.
You had that God confirmation.
I had the God confirmation. And it's been rough. I mean, I would say 99% of the time that God has told me to do something, it was hard, didn't want to do it. It's never like, well, why don't you just like go to Hawaii and, I don't know, do something nice there. That's never been an assignment.
Yeah.
It's been really rough.
People forget that being a Christian is actually really difficult.
It's really difficult.
Yeah, especially in the world that we live in today.
Yes.
It would be much easier to go on a shopping spree or go to Hawaii or, all the things.
Yes. But that's not what God has called us to. And so here we are doing the best we can to be obedient to what he has asked us to do and not fall apart in the middle of it all.
So good. Before we go,
Yes.
I want to give you an opportunity to speak into any other closing thoughts that you have for people listening, for Christians who want to be active in the political sphere, maybe not run for office, but any other things. Any words of encouragement or advice that you'd like to give to Christians listening?
I would say first and foremost, prayer is the most important thing, and it is the most powerful thing any of us can do. I always raise my eyebrow when somebody says, I guess all we can do is pray, or just pray.
We get to pray.
We get to pray with hope and authority. And so before any money is spent, before any, papers are pulled or anything like that, pray. And ask God, what do you want us to do? If God says, I want you to run, know that it's going to be ugly. It's going to be tiresome. You're going to be humiliated. It is, to say it's a viper pit is an understatement.
Yeah, because the enemy doesn't want us in office.
No.
Yeah.
And the enemy delights in making us feel foolish and all of that. So there'll be that. But also, I have experienced some of the most powerful things that Christians do, have done, and can do, is start prayer circles, prayer groups for a specific candidate. That has produced more fruit in the 20 years that Bill and I have been doing something in politics. When people pray, and then when they fast and pray, oh my gosh, it's phenomenal. So one of the things that happened when Bill ran for mayor, he was appointed, but then when he was running for mayor, he won by, I think, 87%.
Wow.
Right.
That's amazing. That's insane.
That's insane. And that's because of prayer and fasting from people, churches. God said, bring the pastors in. Well, what did the pastors do? They got people praying and fasting for this.
That's amazing.
So you get all that connection. And my goodness, God and his angels can and will move mountains. But we have to be willing to fast. We have to be willing to pray. We have to be willing to, not be in the spotlight. Some people really like being in the spotlight. Maybe that's not who God wants to be in office. So please, no matter what, pray.
So good. Thank you so much for being on with me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Listeners, if you didn't listen to Mayor Bill Wells's episode last week, please go listen to it. This couple is amazing, and I'm so honored to know you and to be able to call you a friend. You are an amazing human being, and I can't wait to see what God does through you guys next.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to share it and make sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss an episode. Now go out in the world and make disciples. We'll catch you in the next one.